What's up, everybody? I'm Clayton. This is my movie review channel, and today we are going to take a look at Mission Impossible 2, the second installment in the MI franchise that we are reviewing and looking over. If you're new to my channel, we're on a Mission Impossible series. Already reviewed the first one. Go check that one out. Which brings us to MI2. So I'm going to give my thoughts and review of this movie. I gotta say, though, I was not that excited to come back to this movie, if I'm being perfectly honest, because I had only seen MI2 once, and it was a while back, and I didn't really remember liking it the first time I saw it. So coming to it again this time, I was like, well, you know what? I'll give it a fair chance to win me over again, and see if my opinion changes on it or not. Watched it again for this review, and I gotta say, my opinion did not change. So yeah, I don't particularly like MI2, but I'll hold off on the actual rating until the end of this video. And just as a disclaimer up front, if you haven't seen Mission Impossible 2, there may be some spoilers in this video. It's only been out for 23 years, so that's kind of on you. But you have been warned. You have been warned. There may, in fact, probably will be some spoilers, just because some of the things I need to talk about might possibly spoil some of the plot of the film. So, anyways, you've been warned. Ron, if I spoil something for you, sorry, I'm not sorry. All right. Anyways, let's get into Mission Impossible 2, starting, as always, with the positives to this film. And there are some positives. There are some things I do like with Mission Impossible 2. There are things that I think Mission Impossible 2 did better than MI1, than the first Mission Impossible. If you've seen my review on the first Mission Impossible, you know that my biggest negative with that film was the directing by Brian De Palma. I don't think did a good job directing that film. That's not the case here with MI2. MI2 released in 2000, directed by John Woo, and starring, of course, Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt. So John Woo is the one who got the luck of the draw to take on this script, the story, as director for this one. So, and I do think John Woo did a good job directing this film. I think he did a much better job directing Mission Impossible 2 than Palma did directing the first Mission Impossible. I do think Brian De Palma is a good director. He's done some good work, but I just don't think Mission Impossible was a good project for him specifically to take on. Where John Woo, this is much more up John Woo's alley as a director. He had done previously a lot of films that were more similar to an MI type of film than Brian De Palma had. So I think John Woo kind of understood this genre better. I think he had a better eye for how to direct an action film and a Mission Impossible film than Palma did. So I do think the directing here is better. The film is lit much better than the first one. It's shot better. I think the lenses here are better. The cinematography looks better. A lot of the shots are better. So yeah, I like the directing and the look of Mission Impossible 2 over the first one. I think the sound is better. I think the cinematography is better. I think the score is better by Hans Zimmer. This is a much better directed film than Mission Impossible. The problem is more in the script and in the writing, which we'll get to later on. But as far as positives right now, I do think the directing is a strong positive for me versus the first one. So that was something, and that's something that you can actually kind of notice from the opening scene, how it's just shot, how it looks, how it's lit. You can already tell this is going to be a better directed film than the first one. So I think the camera placements were better. I think the lighting was better. All of it. So yeah, good job by John Woo in directing this film. I think the acting is also a positive for me in Mission Impossible 2. I think the acting is also better overall than in the first one. So yeah, I think Tom Cruise does a better job playing Ethan Hunt in this one than he did in the first one. It feels like he had a better grasp on his character in this one. I think he was able to approach it better. He had some experience now playing Ethan. He kind of knew his character better. And I think it's also partly on the directing of John Woo. I think directing his actors was also better than the way Palma directed his cast in the first one. So I think that's also a reflection of the improvement in directing from the first one. So yeah, I think Cruise did a good job in this one. A lot of the side supporting actors did a better job. I think the antagonist, Sean, what was his name? The character's name, the antagonist, Sean something. It will come to me in a minute. I thought he was a much better antagonist than John Voight was in the first Mission Impossible, who just seemed like he didn't even want to be in the movie. This guy actually did a good job. I thought there's some shots, some close shots of his face where I think he brought that kind of evil, menacing look to the character. I believed, I bought into his performance. Yeah, I thought he did a much better job. His little sidekick guy, I thought did good. Yeah, I think the acting overall was an improvement as well from the first one. So that's also positive for me is the acting and the performances here across the board by everybody. So directing is a positive. The acting overall is a positive. I think the action was good. A lot of the action scenes were shot well. A lot of the set pieces looked good. The action sequences were shot pretty well. A lot more practical effects here, and stunts performed that were pulled off and executed really well. I think the pacing overall was pretty good. So there are definitely strong positives that I have with Mission Impossible 2. Which now brings us to the negatives with this film. And I gotta say, there are quite a bit of negatives for me in Mission Impossible 2. Primarily with the writing is where most of these issues for me come into play. So looking at the negatives now for me personally, one of them is in the opening, the first act. So I felt like the film spent way too much time in the opening with Ethan and Naya, his love interest, Nia. Like that really had nothing to do with the mission. The mission really was to find this bad guy, Sean, and Ethan was supposed to get his hands on the virus and the antidote, and yet they spend like the first 20 minutes of the film with Ethan and Naya. And I felt like it was too much filler there. It's like it wasn't really advancing the story. It wasn't really doing anything for the plot. And the romance in the beginning with Cruz or with Ethan and Naya, I thought was forced. It was way too quick on the romance, way too forced. They hadn't developed any chemistry yet, and yet they're already falling in love and sleeping together. It's like, dude, this is like they just met. They don't even know each other. They just met. This has nothing to do with the mission. I mean, he had to find her, but he wasn't supposed to spend all that time with her either. And then there's even a line in the movie where Ethan was like, "It's not going to be easy to get her to work with me," and then she doesn't even put up a fight. Like she works with him no problem. So yeah, some of the writing there with the script, I think was kind of poorly written. The script wasn't. I don't think the script was fleshed out very well. I think there's a lot of filler there in the first act with Ethan and Naya. It's just kind of wasting time, forced romance that didn't work. I didn't buy into their chemistry. So yeah, that was one of my issues with the film. Another negative for me was all of the conveniences in this film. Like, it's one convenience after another. Like in that final act, and the long action scene, which again, it is another area of the film that I thought was too drawn out, too much filler in that last act. That the whole chase from the facility to the helicopter at the end, I thought was also too drawn out. They could have shortened that down. Yeah, made it a little tighter. But the scene where Sean is pointing the gun at Ethan's back right there at the end of the film, before Ethan gets into the helicopter, and he's like, "You should have killed me." There just conveniently happens to be a gun in the sand that Ethan had kicked earlier in the film, and it just conveniently happens to be right in front of him. Sean conveniently happens to miss Ethan when Ethan is driving out on his motorcycle out from the facility that he steals the antidote from. There's like 6 different guys all shooting at him. They all conveniently miss, but yet are able to tag a helicopter flying in the air at a further distance than Ethan was. They're able to tag the helicopter, but Ethan gets away unscathed. And then there conveniently happens to be some CO2 tanks for Ethan to turn around and shoot to blow up the facility. It's like, dude, way too many conveniences here for me to believe and to buy into. Yeah, so a lot of that stuff I felt was just bad writing. Too many plot holes, and too many things that I'm out. I'm checking out, coach. I'm not. I'll sit this one out on the bench. I'm not willing to play the game, And then the plot armor as well for Ethan, I thought was too strong. Like I said, he's 6 different guys are all trying to shoot at him. The whole chase scene lasts, I don't know, 20 minutes, and nobody can tag Ethan. But he tags every single person that he shoots at. But nobody can tag Ethan. They can tag helicopters flying in the sky, but nobody can tag Ethan. Yeah, and then he happens to fall off the mountain when he's chasing Sean. The two of them fall off this mountain, and there just conveniently happens to be a bed of sand for them to fall on. That's not really even that thick, but neither of them are hurt. Like the plot armor again for Ethan, it's like he can fall off a mountain, not get hurt. He can have 1,000 rounds shot at him and not get tagged. Yeah, it's just like he can get stabbed and sliced and still come out fine, just a couple scars. I don't know how many times he was nearly blown up. Like there were a number of scenes where he was literally at like point blank range from the blast, from the explosion, and was never harmed or bothered by it. And yet the other characters in the scenes were, but Ethan gets out unscathed. It was like, dude, you can't have that high of a plot armor. Like we're not dealing with superheroes here. We're dealing with regular people, regular humans. You can't ask me to believe that this guy has this high of plot armor. I don't buy it. I'm not willing to go there. It's too much of an ask for me. So, yeah, and it's just stuff like that where the action scenes look cool, and I think they're shot well. But overall, I'm just not fully invested in this film because of all of the plot holes, the conveniences, the forced romance in the beginning that already pulls me out. I've just and then the story itself I think is fairly weak. I don't think there's much of a story there either. It just yeah. I think this one, although there are improvements from the first one, overall, I think this film was weaker than the first Mission Impossible. I'm going to give Mission Impossible 2 stars, 2 out of 5. Overall, I did have a negative experience with MI2. I don't think it's a good film. It's not a horrible film. As I've mentioned, it did have some things going for it. There were some things I liked, some things that were a positive experience, and an improvement from the first one. But overall, too many negatives here, too many flaws that affected my viewing experience throughout this film. So, yeah, 2 stars. That's my thoughts on MI2. Let me know y'all's thoughts on this film. What would y'all rate it? Was I right? Was I wrong? Did y'all have a different experience with this film entirely? Let me know in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, until next time, kick it and rock on.